I am kind of curious, how accurate did it portray the experience of frolicking naked in the girls' locker room, whipping each other with towels?
Oh, I literally thought
the 50s or whenever the hell you old people made this movie.
It would have been dead dick, but it would have been something.
Yes.
Maybe he's floating right next to her like an Egyptian block.
And we're back. Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Hello everyone out there in the podverse and here.
And here.
Yes, that's right. Welcome back to the Crowded Theater. I am Kyle.
I am Taylor.
And I am Cliff.
How are you guys doing today?
Not bad.
Doing good.
Doing good. We've seen a lot of movies over the course of the past
so many
week
movies.
or so. We've been trying to get into the Halloween spirit. How's it been going?
Feeling pretty spooky.
Seen a few things this week. What's cool is that it is October, and there's been a lot of really rad and interesting stuff happening in Austin. A lot of cool screenings that we've been able to go to. We got to that we're going to cover, and then we're also going to circle back to one bigger release that we missed when Cliff was out of town last week. So we're going to cover CARRIE this week, which we saw in a Gothic Presbyterian church at Horror Church, an event here, which was really kind of cool. And then we also went to Panic at the Paramount, where we saw a double feature of two fantastic sequels, Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, the perennial classic, beloved by all.
Yes. The only sans Michael Myers Halloween movie,
yes.
in case you didn't know.
Yes, that's right. It's the only Halloween movie that does not have Michael Myers, and Cliff and Taylor and I will weigh in definitively on whether or not that was a good decision or bad decision. We now know, having seen it at the Paramount yesterday, and that was followed up by Return of the Living Dead, a favorite from Cliff and I's childhood, and it was Taylor's first time.
Oh, I can see why it was one of your favorites. I can see why it'd be a repeat watch.
Yes, that's right. Trash is the answer.
Trash would be my answer too, frankly.
Yes, I know. You loved Trash, though.
She was great.
You were laughing away at Trash the whole time, the Linnea Quigley character of Trash, and then she got naked, and then everyone could enjoy Trash
And then
equally.
everyone could enjoy Trash.
And then... so we saw all three of those really just in the past 48 hours, all downtown, all within a block of each other, because the Presbyterian Church is right around the corner from the Paramount. And then finally, near the end, hopefully we'll have time for this. While Cliff was out of town last week, we did not record an episode about Francis Ford Coppola's long gestating Megalopolis. And the wind just blew the door shut, literally, as I said, Megalopolis. Thus, and that really is a great segue, because Megalopolis is a film of such mystery and mystical power that we have devoted our tarot draw this week to uncovering the hidden meanings therein and stuff. And in the end, of course, Cliff will award, and this is a tough one, 4 movies, so which film will get the Full Metal Jacket Award? I don't think there's an obvious answer, so we'll have to get to the bottom and find
Nothing comes to mind. I haven't even thought about this one yet. Give me some time to stew on it.
We're going to have to stew on that, but I think we don't even have an obvious Michael Myers to hand it off to, like we did with Jason last week. We're really going to have to get to the bottom of who deserves Full Metal Jacket.
I think I know the direction this is going. I'll save it for later.
Save it for later. All right. Anyway, but so yeah, this. I mean, I don't know. As of probably 48 hours ago, I wasn't feeling particularly Halloween-y. But then, as of Friday night, we went down to an event called Horror Church, which was put on at the Central Presbyterian Church downtown. It's a big stone church with big stained glass windows and stuff, and they played CARRIE within the context of it looking like it was Carrie White's funeral. We actually, on the table here, for those of you watching the video component, we have one of their little a program in memory of Carrie White, daughter, student, prom queen. I'll hold this up to this camera. There you go. You can see that. That's a lot of fun. And it has, in remembrance, they had someone actually performing a little speech, a little eulogy, full of fire and brimstone.
Yes, it was great performance art. It was a full on.
Was that taken from the book, do you think, or something?
No, I don't think so. I think
cool.
that was just excellent performance art crafted for that evening with us, where basically a woman who might have been a real preacher, maybe not, or
I think she was an actress.
Probably not. Actress, gave a very fired. I don't know how involved the Presbyterian Church is in this horror
not
church
that
thing.
Involved, I don't think.
I would imagine.
But no.
Yeah.
But she did do a good job.
Yeah, did a great job of doing a fire and brimstone type of eulogy with the "May she rest in peace," but very sarcastically, and fire and brimstone because, of course, Carrie it's probably too late for spoilers, but she does bad things.
Yeah, so it mixed kind of that live performance aspect, and then there was another fun live performance aspect at the end of the movie. We saw the movie in a church, which added some very interesting vibes to it. I don't know, how did you like the experience? What was it like seeing? Oh, and the lobby was dressed like a senior prom. I should also mention that, which was fun.
Like the theme as you walked in was all like stands and all of that fun stuff for a senior prom. I really liked it. I thought it was a fun environment. I thought it was a fun I don't want to say gimmick, that seems chachi or chichi, but it was a really great experience. It was a really cool thing. You had all the stained glass windows, you had all of the people dressed in, a lot of the guests or the other people in the audience also
outfits.
Came in costumes, so it almost kind of felt like it was all a big experience.
Yeah, some people came in with horror movie makeup on, like they were burned up in the prom and stuff. And it definitely added a very cool vibe, a very cool context for everything. Oh, and we should add also two friends of ours, and hopefully friends of the podcast, who we'll have on at some point in the future. Composer Brian Satterwhite, who composed music for our most recent movie and some of our projects in the past, was doing music for this event. Mm-hmm. So he was literally dressed as a plague doctor with the full plague mask on, playing piano, and his wife, Maria, was, who I think is a soprano and has a lovely voice, was singing a really creepy avant-garde music as everyone was entering. And
it was German, so it sounded scary no matter what.
Exactly. Yes, a creepy. Anything in German is creepy. Singing, that was really cool. It set an interesting vibe. It was a cool context in which to see Carrie. I don't know. I dig the idea of really putting a lot of effort into theatrical presentation. I think that's one of those things that the Alamo did really well back in the day. They would have, like, again, we've brought up that example before of when Transformers opened, they had a big fucking transforming robot in the parking lot eating cars, and just things that make you excited about the subject of the movie, make you excited about the idea of what's going on beyond the fact that you're just sort of there to view a piece of media. And they were really good at that for a long time. And festivals kind of give people that vibe as well. But I think that just for the average person who's not attending a film festival, and the Alamo does some of that stuff these days, but not quite as much, it's hard to get those kinds of cool, immersive film experiences. And I thought that this was a very cool one, a very cool thing, especially with the idea of it being, they literally had, to set a vibe, they literally had a big framed photo of Carrie, like it was her funeral, up at the front. So there was a kind of solemnity which added a sense of ominous foreboding that was sort of present the whole time, because you're in a church and there's a girl's funeral picture and someone singing and all of this other stuff, which added a kind of, a reverence to the experience, which was pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. So, in addition, we've set the stage for this cool screening. So, how did it go over? Taylor, you have seen the first half of Carrie before at home, and this is a good example, by the way, because you watch a movie at home, you can just fall asleep, as Taylor did at one point, I think, as we started Carrie too late. So now that you've had a lot of time to process the first half of Carrie, so maybe a year or so, how did you enjoy Carrie, Taylor?
It was really good. I will say, spoiler alert for those who have not seen this movie that came out in the 80s, that the big 70s,
yes.
Correction.
Taylor was born in the 90s, so it's all relative.
It's all in the past.
76, maybe? 76. Yeah. Year before Star Wars.
Yeah, I actually have it here. But go ahead, keep talking.
No, you're good.
76.
But I always just assumed, or was under the cultural impression, that the big prom scene, everyone goes up in flames, was the big finale. So when things continued to go on, I was very much just up for the ride. I had no idea how much more it was going, or what was going to happen. I was actually kind of very surprised with the overall ending of her being burned and going to hell. Like, just for some reason, maybe because the sensitive in me wanted the girl who was bullied to have some sort of angelic end. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of fire, and she did kill her mom.
Well, yes, she and it's maybe she goes to hell, maybe she's burning in hell, maybe she's not. We don't know. So how did you? So you knew the facts of the Carrie big prom finale, how was the actual experience of seeing it all unfold? Because I think there was something that's interesting is you even weren't sure until that moment whether or not Amy Irving, you knew that Nancy Allen's character was setting up Carrie. And what's interesting, I've seen the movie many times over the years, and so I kind of know that Tommy Ross and then Amy Irving's character are not kind of sort of that I kind of have good intentions, but ill intentions, which is why they're more focused on alleviating their own guilt than they are actually helping Carrie. But you thought they were kind of in on it until that moment when Amy Irving is watching the bucket of blood fall.
And doing her own
you're
little
sort
eye.
of realizing the tragedy of it. So that was new to you, yeah?
Yes, no. So again, I was only really aware of it just through like the image of Carrie staring covered in blood. Like that was the shorthand, the long of what I knew of Carrie, and she was a bully, tragic soul. And I do believe that the movie maybe even intentionally plays around with the ambiguous friendships of all of the mean girls and whatnot, because they have some loyalty beforehand. They have the big show off with the gym coach, and even I will say go so far as say when the gym coach, after hearing about the date that Carrie's going on the date with the blonde curly haired boy Tommy, they like confront the couple, and they still kind of act cagey, and they don't really act as somebody that do have earnest good intentions, and so I do think it is kept ambiguous for the
no, it's I hadn't thought of it through that angle before, but it does add an interesting ambiguity that also kind of, because the whole idea of the ending is that she projects onto everyone because she's been portrayed so many times that they're laughing at her, like her mother said, even though they're not really laughing at her, etc. So it is interesting to look at the kind of thing through that lens. I am kind of curious, how accurate did it portray the experience of frolicking naked in the girls' locker room, whipping each other with towels?
Oh, I literally thought to myself, like, if I ever see this with my kids, I'd be like, this may have happened in the 80s. It does not happen in
76, but that's fine.
Again, 76.
The 50s or whenever the hell you old people made this movie.
Because in movies that do depict like I'll say even the 50s to the 70s, maybe even early 80s, there is just a lot more free-form nudity, and I even have heard from my family, or from my parents and my grandparents, there was not such a, I don't even want to say stigma, just such an apprehension with nudity. So maybe that was depicted, but it was not when
you found out that my dad, growing up in Detroit, did swim classes entirely in the nude, blew your mind.
I still, when you say it
in
again, I'm like, I know I knew that.
Yeah,
but that's...
No, it's still wild. And then like the next year they introduced swimsuits and everything, but they're like, we can't wash swimsuits, so swimming was done in Detroit in the nude. People just had to be nude back then sometimes, babe.
I mean,
and apparently,
wild.
Truth, I don't know if there was quite so much nude frolicking and whipping each other with towels in reality, but it's a hell of a way to open a movie.
We thank the director for thinking so.
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it's we thank Brian De Palma for that on a lot of different levels, but it really does kind of tee up. I mean, if it's given where it's what's cool about it is it really does misdirect the audience, because you get this slow motion shot of girls frolicking, whipping each other with towels. It's like a kind of boy's fantasy of what it would be like to peep through a hole into the girls' locker room. And it's just in very clean. Everyone's glistening. It's very innocent. It's literally like you're peering into the Garden of Eden and seeing just nymphs playing around. That idea of femininity, and then that goes crashing head first into the reality of seeing the blood go down her leg. Very real. Suddenly we are in biological reality. Then the cruelty of all the girls bullying her and the screaming, and we're not in slow motion anymore, and we're right in her face. It's just it's one of those things that you could, if viewed entirely in isolation, I mean by isolation of like not even what exists 10 seconds after it happens, it's like it's like, wow, there's a lot of nudity and it's a lot of this, but it's so like no other opening to the thing kind of would better tee up that next moment, you know, because it so rips that away. I don't know, it just builds energy to then twist it around. I don't know. I love that was a cool thing about this. I was also thinking, just I don't know, it's a De Palma movie, so a lot of it was just cool to see in a church because you didn't even really need dialogue. You were just watching this sort of visual opera play out. That was very cool. Cliff, how was your experience at the horror church?
Oh, it was a spectacular experience.
Yeah.
The vibe that was set with the music and everything was great, and getting to see an audience react to Carrie and it was a little bit quiet, but everyone got really quiet to listen to it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And but so you could hear every little reaction or titter of people as things were going on, and you can tell it was an audience of people who hadn't all seen Carrie before, and there's a lot of shocking moments in it.
Yeah.
So it was just great to see that. Of course, the famous jump scare at the end of Carrie.
Yes, that definitely got Taylor. That
I was listening the whole time. Who was going to yelp at that? So I was a bit not disappointed.
Yeah.
No, it was a good reaction. It was a good jump scare too. You definitely you had no reason to see it coming, so it really gets you.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it is a crazy movie, and I don't know. It's one of those things that just it's one of those. We live in an interesting time where even looking back at that movie, it feels like something that exists that is somehow more modern and more provocative and more adult than anything that's really being served up. Certainly more formally interesting than most things that are being served up in the cinema today, and it still has that immediate effect on the audience. I can't think of anything. I mean, we're talking about Carrie, and we loved Brian De Palma. Like, we were Brian De Palma fiends, and we watched Raising Cain, and we love Body Double, and we love Dressed to Kill, and all those things, and all of his different Hitchcock homages and all that bullshit. Love it. But it's like Carrie just connected with in a way that you almost, if you want to discuss what Brian De Palma's best film is, you kind of have to take Carrie out of consideration for a moment, because it just, from a zeitgeist level, it's like, and just its success and how its level of cultural penetration, it just goes so far beyond. And why is that? Why did Carrie connect so much deeper than perhaps his more cerebral efforts? And maybe I'm pointing in a direction here like Dressed to Kill or Body Double or Raising Cain or et cetera, et cetera. But why did it succeed, Cliff?
I don't know what direction you're pointing, but part of it, I think, might be just the subject matter. The Stephen King novel adaptation. It was Stephen King's first published novel under his own name. It was a massive bestseller because I think it captured a really powerful idea. It captured a really powerful meme of the idea of the bullied child murdering their entire high school class, which is a meme that has stayed around in culture up to the modern day of school shooters and whatnot.
Yes.
But I think it was never really expressed in any kind of cultural form until then. Just the frustration of a bullied, misunderstood child, just murdering the entire school was just a crazy idea. It was very, because of the novel being a bestseller, it was very much in the zeitgeist, and it's still a powerful idea to this day that has changed its meaning over the years. And so I think he just captured fire with adapting that subject matter at the time.
I'm kind of curious, Taylor, you viewing it as someone who's just seeing it as kind of new. Like, how do you see it relative to I don't know, as you said, a film made in the 80s. So since there's a very little cultural context around it, I'm kind of curious what your take on it is.
I kind of agree with what Cliff was saying. I'll even add to what he was saying is I really think a lot of it is good casting with the main character, with Sissy.
Oh yeah,
I think that she really I think there's a lot with the bully taking on the school, but then she also adds just a real layer of innocence. Like, she never does anything antagonistic, and she's not even like super wilty or like super she has things that she wants, and she has kind of like she does stand up to her mom at certain points, and she has a personality. She is a person, and you do want to see just a person be a person, and you kind of see the whole movie where she's never really even given a chance to have 2 feet on the ground, and she's always looking down, her hair is always in her face. Like, by the end of the movie, it almost feels cathartic for the audience to be like, her hair's out of her face, her eyes are open, she's like, we are all look like it. You can kind of really see yourself through that actress.
It is definitely one of those things that is like one of the most dynamic performances and ever, and I mean that just in terms, I say dynamic specifically because of just the range of performance that is covered over the course of this film by an actress who pulls off the mousy innocence in the beginning so authentically. You almost feel like, they probably found some really sad girl who can't really spin that. And even though, she'd been in other stuff at this point, she pulls it off so authentically. I heard Brian De Palma say that he was looking at a different actress, and then when Sissy Spacek came and auditioned, she made everyone else look silly, is what he said. And that's she pulls off the mousy thing so well that you think, this just must be who she is. She's just dispositionally this person. They found a mousy girl to play the mousy girl. But then, to say nothing of the end of the movie, which we'll get to in a minute, she plays all the dynamic range of the prom sequence of sort of you see her blossom into this woman who's flirtatious and who is stands up to her mom, and who is plays all of these other energies, and really does. You see her really and before, it's easy just to look to the end, but you see her blossom into this whole other personality that is just a different performance entirely. This kind of a little bit of a movie star in the prom scene when she's dancing with Tommy, and after that, and then you go fully to her kabuki performance, this insane performance at the end with her eyebrows up and her eyes basically she embodies, I mean, so much of movies is just behavior. It's like, can actors, not what they're saying with the words, but what are they conveying with their body? And the idea that the same actress who's this just authentically, they must have plucked her off the street, mousy girl in the beginning, is standing there with her eyes wide, her hands pulled back at a right angle, and is still performing. She's still doing a character, but it doesn't feel like the girl from Badlands. And I think this is probably what anticipated the fact that she would have a very long career in Hollywood, and we would still be seeing her being hilarious in Blast from the Past all those years later, which I think we just watched with Taylor not too long ago. It's just the fact that it's like, in terms of just dynamism, like what you see an actor do, the fact that she feels simultaneously like this crazy kabuki ghost in the end, and she's pulling it off as if she's this crazy professional dancer, and then at the beginning she's this mousy girl. It is a transcendent kind of a performance, and I don't know. So all that stuff. And why can she do this? Because she's from Texas. That is the answer. Because she is from Texas, and because she is from Texas, she has an authentic heart, whereas girls from LA just don't have that.
Speaking of the fact that she is from Texas, she is actually related to a friend of mine. Apparently, Sissy Spacek is related to the grandmother. She's the cousins of a grandmother of a friend of mine. So that all lived in Elgin area. So
she's
very,
from Elgin.
very Texas.
No, that is awesome. She's a friend of Courtney. Your friend Courtney.
My friend
That's
Courtney.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. No, and that is it is also one of those things, because she started with Terrence Malick, and Terrence Malick has been shooting a lot of weird stuff around Austin the last several years. So that is another cool thing so I think we've answered the question. Why did this penetrate culturally so much more than Brian De Palma's other movies? Because Sissy Spacek is from Texas. I think that is the answer, as opposed to Cliff Robertson from Obsession, who is not from Texas and orange in the face. Obsession. Genevieve Bujold is an Obsession. She is great, though.
Oh, yeah. She's always great.
Nancy Allen, also always great. And frequently naked. Also in RoboCop, which we revisited recently.
Not naked in RoboCop.
Not naked in RoboCop, but very naked in this movie.
My last thought, because I feel like
please.
we're about to merge into Naked and talk about Return to the Living Dead. My last thought of Carrie is for the audience. If anyone knows any good fan fictions that are between Tommy and Carrie, please send them to Taylor.
I'm glad you brought this up. You brought this up, and it's not a bad idea, considering. Go ahead.
I really, again, genuinely, because I always love a blonde. I'm not on par with a lot of usual people who like the black hair, brown hair guys. I love a good blonde, and I really did like Tommy's dynamic.
Which is why you chose me.
Which is why I chose Kyle. Yes, you can see. No, but I really liked his dynamic with Carrie. I really liked the fact that they had a really cute poem scene early on, and he kind of defends Carrie.
They put the poem in the program.
That's also really cool. Poem's the program.
So in the funeral program that we actually have here for the event, they actually put Tommy's poem in there, which I will read very dramatically and quickly. What are you going to leave for us, you people in your cars, spewing pollution into the air? You people with heavy feet trampling down the wilderness? You people who peer into back seats of our cars hours after you come out of the back doors of your motels? Soon all we will have is each other, and that could be enough if you will let us have room enough and air enough and peace enough to love each other as you never could. Tommy Ross, Prom King. Taylor is so on board. She would read that romance novel tomorrow.
No, I just think
someone go write that.
And again, with the big reveal at the very end that he did have a good heart, even though his girlfriend or his prom date was kind of what put him up to it. He had a very good interest in her and liked who she was, and I think that'd be really sweet. I wish R.I.P. Tommy. He did die through the actions of the prom, but
no, I will say within that, just to get to one thing that is interesting about the movie that I really appreciate, maybe more now than I understood when I was a kid, is that everyone wants to help Carrie, but the teacher, the coach, she just punishes the shit out of the other girls, which incurs all the wrath of the girls. Amy Irving's character and Tommy Ross, they just try and force her into this position that's really more about them appeasing their own guilt, or Amy Irving appeasing her own guilt, than it is actually, or alleviating her own guilt, than it is actually helping Carrie, and as a result, everyone just kind of gets fucked in the end, which is a cool ending to that. But my question is, now that we've addressed the perfect moral ribbon, is what would happen in the Tommy Ross Carrie fan fiction? Like, what goes on in this?
I don't know. 'Cause don't make me speculate too much, because I do read a lot of romance books. No, but it seems like there would be a really cool friendship there. It almost, if you want to go
friendship.
Obviously, I don't know.
Listen, let's get Amy Irving out of the picture.
I'm about to say that's what I'm talking about. Like, the friendship between her and the girl.
She needs to go off and go marry Steven Spielberg and take half of his money in the divorce and never act again. So she's taken. Listen,
she's fine.
Her dance card is full. She has $500 million. So let's instead focus on Tommy Ross and Carrie. What happens? Let's say they don't die in the prom at the end. And Amy Irving moves away to go marry Steven Spielberg, and then they just decide to start dating for real. And what's their story, babe?
I don't know. I feel like Carrie would explore more of her telekinesis powers, and she would fall more into herself. She would continue to grow her hair past her butt.
Good point.
Lovely long hair. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about the Tommy. I don't remember if he played a sport. I don't remember if he
does play. They say he's a football guy. So
he was a football
jock.
Guy.
He's the greatest American hero.
Let's just say that she gets a bookstore in their small town, and he becomes the next high school coach.
So is this fan fiction then decidedly pre-prom, i.e. the prom?
No, this is the prom didn't happen. So we're moving
on. See, the more interesting fan fiction though is staying in the horror genre is, of course, the prom happens, but instead of leaving Tommy to burn up, she drags him out, drags his unconscious body out the door with her.
Using telekinesis.
Using telekinesis, exactly. Maybe he's floating right next to her like an Egyptian granite block.
That's right.
As she walks away, and then they run off together, Bonnie and Clyde style.
Yeah.
Oh, I could be into that.
She murders everyone except for Tommy.
It's like a reverse gendered Harley and Joker.
That's
She's
right.
not crazy.
But in order to have a kind of recurring villain in this story, in this version, she doesn't kill her mother, but her mother is then after her, trying to chase them down with the big stabby knife or other kinds of holy weapons or something.
To get her daughter back. The thing that she can control.
She goes home, she kills her father, she joins the Texas Rangers.
There you go.
Another Stephen King story, actually. That's from Stand By Me. But no, I like that. I especially like how much you invested in that relationship.
I really like that.
No, they were good. No, that is definitely a good thing. So we'll put it out to you, the world. Someone go write that. Go write that fan fiction. But yeah, no, Carrie was a fantastic way to kick off the weekend, and then we were right back downtown the very next day, which was
less than 24 hours later.
Which was crazy because it was apparently UT was playing Georgia, and so there were just hundreds of people everywhere. Because we live near campus, we actually live closer to the stadium than downtown, so we're kind of getting away from the craziness. But we're awash in hundreds of people wearing orange shirts. Downtown, we saw Bevo, who was a giant longhorn.
In the flesh. Bevo in the flesh.
Yes, he was walking by just to set the stage. And then we went to Panic at the Paramount downtown, which they've been doing an awesome October series. They played Demons. We missed it, but we got here for the marathon tonight, or the marathon yesterday. They continued playing Dream Warriors and Texas Chainsaw 2 later in the evening, but we have seen both of those movies in the theater relatively recently. So we took the afternoon to see two fantastic movies, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and Return of the Dan O'Bannon's Return of the Living Dead, which was a really cool, actually surprisingly, I wouldn't have thought to put those two movies together, and yet they felt very connected, very, very naturally. They're both fun sequels. They work great. They both kind of continue Dark Star energies. By that I mean Dan O'Bannon and John Carpenter started together on Dark Star, which we saw in theaters at AFS, actually, I think probably a year ago again, and which is, of course, it has all that kind of pre-alien stuff in it of paranoia about corporations and conspiracies about, who's really running things, etc., which you again see both in Season of the Witch and Return of the Living Dead, which we'll get to. But I don't know, Taylor, what was your take on the only Halloween movie that does not have Michael Myers in it?
I also into it cold, as I do most of these movies. I knew it had something to do with masks, and that was really it. And I liked it. I thought it was really good. I thought it was, again, we were watching before this, we were watching some extra credits or some extra info about the movies and whatnot, and somebody had made the statement that if it hadn't been marketed as Halloween 3, it would have done at least better. And I think that's true. I think neither here nor there, because it's all already done. But I do think it would have been a fun, great standalone Halloween movie if you didn't go in kind of had the whole time being like, I'm waiting for something.
And I must add to this also that, Kyle, when you and I first saw it on VHS, we also got fooled in precisely that way. We had already at that point consumed most of the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and had not yet delved into any of the Michael Myers movies, Halloween movies. And the first one we picked up was Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Because that's what they had at our local video store.
Yeah, they had at the local video store. It looked like it had the coolest cover. And I think our logic at that time regarding sequels is, well, it takes 2 or 3 for them to really get going and get it off the ground. Because that was sort of the case with Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So we figured, by part 3, they got to get this Michael Myers thing down like a well-greased engine. But sure enough, watching that movie, waiting for Michael Myers to show up for a good chunk of it, until realizing because we had dumb kid brains, probably about 3/4 of the way through, that Michael Myers is not in fact
just
up.
Tom Atkins, as it turns out, and his mustache. So
womanizing mustache.
His womanizing mustache. Yes, no, it's a quirk. It's an interesting choice, because on one hand, I totally understand this as a fantastic alternate idea to how, if you're going to make the central subject of your unfolding anthology series Halloween, and so you have a masked killer going around on Halloween in the previous 2 films. What's another cool...
Wearing a Halloween mask. What is another cool idea for something that you could do with this? I like this idea in general. The idea of even kind of taking the commercialized version of Halloween, lots of candy, lots of masks, what's the deal? And making that the malevolent thing, making the masks evil. A bunch of kids are going to put on these 3 silver shamrock masks, and boy, do we hear that song a whole lot in that movie. Which again, you get, that makes sense. People were being annoyed and overwrought with advertisements. So they make that the villain. And it's actually a very good idea. I think there's just some eccentricities in how that idea is presented that ultimately undermine the effectiveness of that idea. Like we were just talking about, what do you anticipate happening when what did you anticipate happening once they actually played the commercial and stuff? How did that differ from the reality of the thing?
I had been spoiled by movies like the Disney classic Halloween Town, where there was a plot very similar to this, and you've actually seen the movie I'm referencing.
Did they rip off Season of the Witch for Halloween Town?
No. But whereas I thought what was going to happen was the masks were somehow going to turn the kids into those ghouls. I thought we were about to have a bunch of skeletons running around, a bunch of witches running around.
That sounds like an awesome movie.
It would be so cool. Go check out Halloween Town. But yeah, no. Then
it would even be keeping in with the Celtic witchcraft theme. That would actually work right on line with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good. No, go ahead.
No. But the creepy stuff did happen.
No, for sure. I was saying that makes perfect sense, honestly, and that's one of those things where Cliff and I were discussing, you do the entire movie up to that point, but hey, here's the big twist. Once the signal goes out, the kids all who are wearing the mask become little Michael Myerses, and all the kids who, and again, they're literally, the commercials being broadcast during a screening of Halloween on TV, the original film.
And how do you tie it into the original? You retroactively make it one of those Halloween masks that turn Michael Myers that way in the beginning.
Sure.
But it turns out in the prequel.
There you go. Sure. But I'm going to say that, but just think about just the logic of what was the criticism by 82 emerging that would ultimately cause films like Friday the 13th Part 7 to have all the gore cut out of them. The idea that all the blood and all the stuff in these slasher movies is a social ill, because if people are going around seeing guys in masks chop people up, kids are watching that on TV, they're just going to get a bunch of knives and hack up their parents. So at the end, you have a literal fucking commercial for the big candy Halloween, whatever fucking thing. They all have microchips in in their masks. We've been building juice towards that the whole movie. What do the kids do? It would make a whole lot of sense for the kids to then take up a bunch of knives and bats and chainsaws and shit and children who corn their parents. And then you got Tom Atkins running around like it's Night of the Creeps, except you got a bunch of like roaming bands of kids who are all witch heads and pumpkin heads and fucking skeleton heads, and you're doing that, and it opens up the possibility then to, you know, not do the Invasion of the Body Snatchers ending, but maybe do a more ending where you turn it off and some of the kids take the masks off or whatever.
Exactly. You can still save the kids. You don't need to be brutal. You pop the mask off. Hey, the kid's back to normal.
Yes, there you go. I mean, many of them have murdered their parents, and that's a good movie.
But we move on.
Yes, exactly. But I'm saying, like, that answers it. And it's not that the kids, spoiler alert, their heads turning into crickets is not creepy. It is creepy if
crickets
it were...
and one big rattlesnake.
Snake.
One rattlesnake.
Because that's the thing.
And some tiny snakes.
Up to that, exactly. And tiny snakes as well. Let's not forget about the tiny snakes. They can be dangerous. But that's this thing. Is like, even like right up to that moment, you're anticipate, like, we're going to lock the parents in. The kid has his mask on. He's there. So you're anticipating the kid killing. It would have been great. And as you have a whole actiony third act, because I think even when we were leaving the theater, I think, Taylor, one of the things you said is that the ending felt kind of soft.
It felt weird. It felt very TV movie ending, if I'm being very honest. But because I again, like, I have
You're
nothing.
expecting something more to happen than him pouring a bunch of buttons on everybody.
Kind of.
But
Yeah.
by the way, funny you should say TV movie ending. This director would later direct the It TV movie with Tim Curry.
Funny.
Is that really? Is that true? Is that
Yeah,
true?
I believe so. Yeah, and Fright Night Part 2 as well.
Okay, there you go. Fantastic.
I did like Fright Night 1 a lot.
Yeah, Fright Night Part 2 felt like a cinematic movie, but It certainly was a literal TV movie.
Nice,
so there you go.
No, I know. And Fright Night 2 is fun. We should watch Fright Night Part 2 when it plays in a movie theater, and then we'll talk about it here. But I don't know. What was I just talking about? Oh, yeah. So I don't know. So there's that. There's the fact that really we're kind of build towards this ending, which... in terms of things also that build juice towards this ending, where he defeats everyone by pouring a box full of buttons on their heads, what's in those buttons, Cliff? Something that was not as relevant to me.
Computer chips.
Computer chips, but what's attached to every one of those computer chips? A piece of Stonehenge, which is pretty kick-ass, I gotta say. I mean, if you're gonna have something happen, I'm all on board. I had not watched this movie in a few years, and I immediately was renewed in my interest when it conveniently opens with the television broadcast of one of the Stonehenge monuments being stolen, and apparently the original writer of the story was a British guy who created the Quatermass series and a lot of other folk horror things, which I actually want to look more into now because I like that a lot. Now, bear with me, y'all. You start out with Stonehenge. You end with a bunch of witchy shit. Fine, I'll even give you the crickets and the snake as the method by which the people are going to kill. Because it seems like you're just going to have a bunch of snakes. That just doesn't seem as cool as kids running around killing their parents. But still, anyway. But you have this big witchy sacrifice. So what's the middle thing? What's the middle part of the movie? You're going to point a camera at different horror things happening in the middle part of this movie. What's going to happen? And there's only one logical answer. Robots. Just fucking robots. Between Stonehenge and your witchy ending, just a lot of robots. And that's the one thing, I get it conceptually, that it's like computer age and witchcraft. I think that was even part of the pitch for the movie. I get it, but when you're with robots, you're kind of in a tonal space where witchy shit kind of throws you for a loop. And if you have witchy shit, why not do witchy shit instead of robots, you know?
So, unanimated undead corpses or something like that. Those could have been the guys,
like
something like that.
Possessed people somehow that
they
are
take
also
their glasses
stronger
off
because...
and they have like weird white eyes and they've been bewitched like voodoo zombies, like White Zombie, like Bela Lugosi, but aren't robots.
That seems like something that a old Irish male witch would do.
Yes, and exactly, played by the head of OCP.
Played by before he was the head of OCP.
His fucking name is, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, playing, what was his name in the movie? Cochran, Mr. Cochran. Another great name, you know? And the whole town being devoted to him, fantastic. It's like a contemporary version of doing the British Wicker Man style folk horror thing. They even bring in Stonehenge, so you really know what they're doing. They're doing it in America. I'm super into it. But instead, they put robots in the middle. And, you know, here's the thing. If you want to mix the witchcraft and the technology, the television commercial thing, takes care of it. The whole thing. That's all you need. You just need the television commercial, because you know why? It's in the whole fucking movie. It's playing constantly. So the idea that television...
Every day of the movie.
And what is playing on the television in the movie? Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween 1. All of the things, all the funny, fucked up meanings, all the intersection of witchcraft and technology and the contemporary satirical stuff, it all works just with the TV thing. You don't need the robots. I like all the kills, by the way. Like, again, the lady blasts her face off with the thing and the bugs.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that was
Fucked up her
badass.
teeth.
That was one of the
cool.
best effects in the movie.
Yeah, and then the robots thing pays off with perhaps the weirdest part, which is when it's revealed that, at least for some period of time, if not all of the time, what's her head? The chick
I
is a robot.
I think it's pretty clear. She's a robot once he takes her off of the stretcher. Because once he takes her off of the stretcher, I was looking for it at this point. Her face is always blank thereafter. So, yes, they kidnap her.
Speak.
They kidnap her. Probably she's dead already. Maybe she's still in prison. But they show him the video of her strapped to the gurney. So that's where he goes to get her. And it is indeed a robot version.
Then we have to ask, and I don't mind this as a logic problem. It's fine. But then why doesn't she stop him from pouring buttons all over everyone? Because the head of OCP really just does not seem to care
Because
that
we
he's
needed
stopping.
to get to the scene with the 5 jump scares.
5 jump scares, yes. Taylor did not like how many jump scares. As silly as those jump scares are, I must say, when she keeps coming back to life, even after he cuts off her head and everything and keeps grabbing him, it points to how effective the theatrical experience was, because literally every time Taylor had her head buried in my shoulder, and she was just like, Jesus Christ, not again, because you felt every single one of them. Like, you couldn't not react to...
There was, after the 4th one, I had the conscious thought of, like, clearly they can't be anymore. I even whispered to Kyle, thank goodness that's over. And then there was one more!
Yes, and then I think it was probably 2 more.
Maybe even 2 more. It was...
Yeah,
and they were fun, though. Like, go see the movie still. It's very, very fun.
Yeah.
But, geez, they really crammed those in.
Yes, no, for sure. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, so we did that. I don't know, Season of the Witch. I think that, so just to kind of put a little bit of a bow on Season of the Witch, we can move on to talking about Return of the Living Dead. Yeah, it's just one of those movies. I dig so much of its meaning, and I dig even the concept, and I dig so much of the energy that's built towards the movie. It just feels like it's building towards, and I remember feeling this way as a kid. The moment the kid's head became crickets, and I really did not have much of a concept of what the movie was, immediately let down. I just remember, like, oh, because when I was a kid, I wanted to see monsters, I wanted to see things, I wanted to see whatever, and so when it turns out crickets, just kind of felt like a nah. And now, with distance and many, many years, and now seeing it through adult eyes, I feel the same way. I feel like the kid me, if the movie had turned into a bunch of kids wearing Halloween masks, fucking turning into basically gremlins and destroying the town.
Oh, yeah. Had the kid in that scene, instead of his head turned to bugs, somehow picked up a conveniently placed for him knife right there, and then bloodily murdered his parents in that small little room there with all sorts of gore effects and all that good stuff. We would have been on board that train all day long.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is I remember y'all saying even after we were leaving the movie, like, the only reason the 2 parents even died was because coincidentally the 1 snake or the 2 snakes that came out, the mom had a heart attack, I guess, and the dad got bit by a snake. And
Exactly.
so, like, how is that, like, the big plan of they're going to kill us all?
Exactly, and that's sort of the thing. That's the thought, is like, well, then what are we... Because you don't necessarily have to even lose the Invasion of the Body Snatchers ending to the movie. You got to stop them, etc., because he defeats everything, he stops everything, he thinks it stopped, but then at the end you find out, say, that the commercial's going out, that's fine. But at least when you're doing that ending, if there's the children become murderers version, we know what we're picturing. We're picturing something, a bunch of kids all becoming murderers and killing their parents, or maybe it just happens in the local area and it goes crazy, and now at the end we're now picturing, not unlike the end of Return of the Living Dead, it's spreading out beyond that. What are we picturing at the end when, like in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, when he's like, they're coming for us all? We know, because we just spent the whole movie seeing exactly that. What are we picturing? everyone's head's crickets. I mean, and then you just got a bunch of snakes. And I get that it's about child sacrifice and all the kids die and all that, but it's not necessarily it's just not a cool movie to picture. You're not picturing mayhem. You're just sort of picturing something that's kind of lame.
Yeah, it's not a fun visualization. Your imagination doesn't really take off from there unless it's about a bunch of adults batting away snakes with sticks, which is mostly what it would consist of at that point.
What was that called on The Simpsons? Whacking Day.
Whacking Day.
Yes, it's like you're
so
basically...
all you can visualize is Whacking Day from very sad parents.
Yes, that is
all that's going to happen.
That's because it's like
wax.
as opposed to the version of the movie that we wanted, we are all picturing Homer Simpson and the other whackers whacking snakes as the end of the movie, which, is less cool, perhaps. Okay, so then we finished Season of the Witch. We
took like a 15-minute intermission.
That's right, took a 15-minute intermission, and then we started Return of the Living Dead, which was, Taylor, this was your first time seeing Return of the Living Dead.
For sure.
Which was a difficult thing to explain even what it was when I was trying to explain it to you before.
Literally, I go into most of these movies pretty cold or pretty blind, and this one even more so. I literally only saw the poster. So I only knew that there was dead punk people, which is my favorite kind of punk people, because I think they are the most in one with their own nature at that point.
That's right, absolutely. 100%. The most punk rock thing you could be is dead, as Trash points out over and over again.
Which, when we get there, was a phenomenal scene.
That's great.
That scene had me cracking up.
Which scene in particular?
The scene where she
ultimately gets eaten?
The sandwich of her book story. Yes, when she ultimately dies was hilarious. R.I.P. Trash.
So, what was your take on Trash before we get into it? Played by Linnea Quigley.
If I would have seen this movie in high school or any other age other than the ripe age of 28, she would have been a problem for me.
You would have just immediately become Trash.
I would have.
You're like, why am I not dancing in a cemetery?
She was so cool to like the inner 14-year-old Taylor. She was so cool.
There you go. Yeah, no.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah. No. That's exactly how I pictured Taylor at that age, wanting to be is dancing on cemeteries and wanting to be torn apart by dogs or whatever.
Zombie men.
Zombie men, exactly.
But they were much younger. I guess they were dead, so they're very old. But yes, no, she had a very funny joke at the beginning where she was like, "Isn't it just the sexiest idea to be, or the sexiest way to be killed, or something crazy?"
The most horrible way to be killed but she's clearly very into it, and she's tearing her clothes off, etc. I also was very into Trash when I was a kid watching it, for reasons that were related but different.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I did not so much want to be Trash as I did have a fascination that would, slowly crystallize over the course of my life and then come to define much of it. That's how I met you. See, it was like Fievel. We were staring at the same moon.
You're so
secretly.
funny.
You were just being.
I saw it for the first time tonight. The same moon.
No, but Return of the Living Dead. I remember even just trying to explain it to you because you've seen Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, I think. And you've seen Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. And so in attempting to explain Return of the Living Dead, you're like, so this is the sequel to Dawn of the Dead? And I was like, no, that's not right. It's like, so basically, Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead is the sequel to Night of the Living Dead, but this is kind of like an adjacent, in its own world, comedic punk rock sequel take send-up of Night of the Living Dead in a world, as you saw, wherein the original, which actually is a thing that connects it to Season of the Witch. In both films, the films that are the progenitors of the films are metatextually films within the films.
That's a good point. That's an excellent reason those should have been tied together in a double feature.
That's probably why they did it, I guess. But Season of the Witch, obviously we're watching the kids are all corrupted by a television broadcast of Halloween, causing them to, as parents have feared for years, turn into crickets. And then obviously there's the great opening scene with what's his name and Tommy from Friday the 13th Part 6. Second appearance by that actor who played Tommy in Friday the 13th Part 6. What is his name? I have it right here. Second appearance by what is his name? He plays Tommy in this. Clu Gulager, Fred. There you go. Oh, yeah, Tom Matthews. Yeah, that's right. He played Tommy in Friday the 13th Part 6. Played Freddy in Return of the Living Dead, his second crowded theater film now at this point. And James Karen as Frank. And they are hilarious and awesome. And quite frankly, I could have watched, I remember even being a kid and thinking, like, I could watch a whole movie just about these guys hanging out here in this, which is a pretty remarkable thing in and of itself. Sorry,
and especially on a low-budget movie like this. Well, one of the things that I think on a recent Joe Bob was mentioned, that the cast had a chance at, I think, a week or two of rehearsal prior to shooting, which I think definitely shows them being able to establish a fun comedy vibe between themselves. That's clearly, good and solid for a very long, like, tracking shot at the beginning where they're having to go through all that business.
Yes. No, and again, so I love how arch everyone's performances are. I like how everyone's moving, how everyone's energetic. As big as all the costumes are and how Trash is dressed and how fucking whatever is dressed, they feel like a cohesive group. They feel like a surreal group, but they still feel like a cohesive group. Even the kind of out of place what's-her-head.
I was going to say, the only one that I was but even she still felt like the one.
Yeah, I know.
The token preppy in the punk group.
Exactly. Tina, played by Beverly Randolph. I'm just using the computer now. As the good girl, she somehow feels I buy her as part of that group. She's just eccentric enough. You can imagine she's dating Tommy. He's handsome. He has an earring. I get it. Like, it makes sense.
He's the edgy football player.
Exactly. There you go. But the whole thing, I don't know. There's something about so this movie takes place. What I was trying to get to is they, in this awesome opening conversation, refer to Night of the Living Dead, obviously, as a film that exists but was based in this world on true events. And
the movie opens with the hilarious, right like Fargo at the beginning, the title card.
Yes.
Everything that happened in this movie is true. The names are real people, and the names of organizations are real.
Yes.
Yada, yada,
Many
yada.
years before Fargo, this film does that gag, and it got a great, great laugh from the audience. Perhaps a bit more obviously absurd when they nuke everything at the end that this wasn't based on true events, but I like to think that it's a good opening for a movie. I don't know. I love anything. I think one of the things that stopped me from liking the movie as much when I was a kid was and this is one of those things, I like the characters of so much. I like the characters of Freddy and Frank in the beginning so much that the parts where they're in hideous pain for like 20 minutes at the end of the movie, I was just like, I want to fast forward.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. That is one of the things. This movie has, such a great ensemble cast, and this is one of the few zombie movies or horror movies where the real thing that's most interesting is just looking at the people acting and interacting. But it doesn't really have a protagonist that's clear. It kind of shifts its perspective a whole lot.
Which is a very Dan O'Bannon kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Actually, because it famously Alien. I was thinking about this during the screening. And Alien, the protagonist, sort of organically emerges from a bunch of different characters who are kind of all interacting, and they're very much doing the same thing, or that idea in this film where there's a bunch of different characters interacting, from which the characters that ultimately make it to the end of the movie are surprising relative to the beginning, and yet I really would have, or at least, okay, Tommy's in a lot of pain, but have it pay off in some fun way where he wrestles control of himself at the end just enough to fight one of the zombies and get Tina away, or some way in which it kind of pays off energetically. But nevertheless, the one thing, though, that even though we don't get to spend the whole movie with Freddy and with them, I do have to say I appreciate much more that I just dig the whole cast so much of the movie. I like hanging out with them in the cemetery. I liked hanging out with Clu Gulager. And what's crazy is how much of this movie, and this is actually another interesting similarity to Season of the Witch, which is starring Tom, instead of Jamie Lee Curtis, it's starring, all those young and pretty people in Carrie. It is starring Tom Atkins, Martin Riggs himself. Tom Atkins, and this film, by like midway through the movie, we are in a fun punk rock horror movie for kids, and our three characters who are on screen for a lot of the movie all have gray hair. You have Clu Gulager as the owner, who I think is almost supposed to play, like the evil corporate guy who only has the bottom line in mind, but you like him so much, he just sort of radiates a decency where you're kind of on his side weirdly for most of the movie.
With that one line, like, where'd you come from? The main building. No!
Yes, that's great. No, he's just, again, I don't know why. The character's clearly written to be kind of a shit, and yet I buy him because Clu Gulager kind of gives him this sort of decency. And then you have the other two guys, the crazy mortuary guy and Frank, who are just so wild and eccentric and have like big, Peter Lorre eyes and are so crazy that in this punk rock movie, 3 of our biggest characters are all men in their 60s who are all kind of interact. Anyway, just a very interesting, unexpected, weird cast from which a strange alchemy came from it. I don't know. It was really
well. The lesson is you can have old white men in your movies if you have an appropriate gang of kids and deliver the goods.
That's right.
Deliver the goods with the
10%
kids.
of screen time must have tits.
Exactly.
That's
And what are the kids
Absolutely.
supposed to do
Thank
in
you,
these
Taylor.
movies? What are these kids supposed to do? Yeah, they're supposed to party and show their tits.
Show their tits.
And the kids do nothing but that. They immediately show up, and immediately their only agenda is to party.
Indeed.
They're just restless to party in that car.
And I will throw out, again, because we were listening to some pre-show data and some notes about the movies and whatnot, the director did mention that he suspected that the movie would only be popular amongst boys. And had he known that many women would have been in the screenings, we would have had Freddie naked on screen too, ladies. We were starved of our Freddie on stage.
That's right. No, and so the movie would have been that much better if Freddie had been nude, do you think?
Ear piercing man? Yes. No, I
Yes.
think that it would have been dead dick, but it would have been something.
Yes. I think they even said, and here's what's funny. I
guess she was dead boobs too. But
They said he was, I think that it was him. I think it was him who was George Clooney's roommate at the time. And visited, so you imagine George Clooney visiting that set. One thing I also think is cool about it is because everything is so arch and so cartoonish, and it establishes that tone right off the bat so well with the kids. And they all have this just totally unique look. This is a movie where you have no trouble telling any of the characters apart, unlike Dunkirk, the Christopher Nolan movie or whatever, where you can't tell anyone a fucking apart. It's like you have no problem telling these kids apart. They're all so unique, and they're all giving these just big, loud, again, almost Japanese-style performances in the beginning of the movie that don't feel naturalistic at all. And I think that's part of the reason the film, in a weird way, feels very timeless. In the sense that watching it now, the kids feel anarchic and punk rock in a way that's almost contemporary. Because they're kind of these figures that exist that are very 80s, but they almost are so cartoonish they're wearing costumes. And other
that
films...
one. Dude, what do you think this is? This is
a
a costume. This is a
Suicide.
lifestyle.
That's right,
Suicide.
Suicide.
R.I.P. Suicide.
It's exactly the guy that Taylor would have dated back then when she was in her trash phase.
Yes, I would have tried to be trash, and I would have fought and looked for my suicide.
That's right. But
the tallest of the punks.
Exactly, the tallest of
And the one with the car. She had good thoughts.
That's
she
right.
had good instincts.
In truth, Emmy, he was there. Suicide was there for his friends. He provided a car for them. He hung out. He could have just dropped them off at the cemetery and taken off. He wasn't into partying, clearly, but he waited there for them for their safety.
I also like the fun, just throwaway line that he smashed out all the windows of his car.
Windows, I smashed them all. when the acid rain starts pouring
Just
on.
out of pure angst
Out
is
of
the
pure,
implication.
fuck this car.
Yes. No, that was a good moment. It's weird. I've seen the movie a bunch of times, and I just enjoy, that's just one of my favorite moments is when they burn the stuff, and because it's not just an idea that they burn the stuff, and then all the chemical goes into the clouds and gets rained down. They show it to you. They shoot it. They burn the stuff, and you watch all that smoke, and the music's real cool, and it sounds almost like Thriller, and it bong, and like it's going up, and you see the smoke, and then right as the smoke dissipates, thunder, and you see the rain pouring down, and then the very gothic shots gliding over the cemetery, and the rain seeping down onto the guy's feet. That's such a cool sequence. And so you're taking what could be, if you don't give it that amount of time and that amount of love, an intellectual idea. Like, oh, we burned it and the chemical got out there and that's why there's zombies. And it turns it into a cinematic idea.
Oh, yeah, and don't forget the most impressive cinematic thing of that sequence, when the water hits the ground and then we go through the cutaway, vertically descend through the cutaway of the ground down 6 feet to see, see the water seeping through the dirt and falling through a coffin onto the feet. Yeah. And then later, that same cutaway is where we see a zombie crawling up through the earth, which is... I think Kill Bill did the same thing when she was crawling up out of the earth, that kind of cutaway of the ground.
The cutaway, absolutely. Which it also is a film that interestingly had various cross sections in it.
Oh, cross section is the word I was looking for.
Yeah, but still, I was thinking like with the Split Dogs and the anatomy books. And
which on the Split Dogs?
We don't. Taylor was very unhappy about the Split Dogs.
You never see the Split Dogs being taken care of, and so therefore you are forced to believe that those poor pooches cages.
They said that they were going
said.
I think they were probably in some of the bags. That's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say.
I'll agree with you.
They said because once they finished burning away all the ashes, Kluger breathes a big sigh of relief, and he says, "We're scot-free." And I think that I think that those dogs are in heaven with Dom DeLuise right now.
But look at this way, Taylor. This movie has the same ending as Barry Lyndon. All these characters, no matter if they were rich or poor, good or bad, in the end, they are all equal under an atomic cloud.
That is true.
At the end, you do get closure.
Yes, everyone is indeed incinerated, including if the dogs were still around. They are nuclear ash.
Yeah, I did wonder if I think originally the bomb was supposed to be the dark out of the movie. It was supposed to be the end. You know, it was supposed to be the end, and yet you see a lot of the shots from that sequence being recycled with narration to kind of create the extra beat of after the nuclear blast. Now it's going to go worldwide, which is a great idea because as good as the nuclear bomb ending is, you need that kind of extra beat. Which I wonder, I don't know whether or not that was constructed in post, but it looks like the kind of idea that was just constructed in post after when they were like the bomb just doesn't quite feel like it's the end yet.
And it's pretty good. There you assume the bomb is like a big incinerator,
exactly.
And then that all goes and but they recycle the same shots. So probably not.
I don't know. It's what was it? Yeah, no, that was always a favorite. It was always a favorite thing, and I don't know what was it? The cast and all. I don't know. What was your take, Taylor?
It was really good, honestly. Return of the Living Dead was probably my favorite of the three, especially of the four that we're going to talk about. But
we'll give some time to it in a minute.
But I really liked it. I wanted to say I had something I wanted to bring up about it a second ago, and I just lost it for a quick second. But oh goodness, no, it was just a fun movie. I think that was one was probably one of my favorite three. A part of the extra features they was mentioning it was one of the first movies to supposedly make it specifically brains that they and not general flesh.
Yes, no, it was very much. That's a good point. It was really the only movie, like every cartoon version of zombies when you're a kid, it wants brains, and this was the movie, at least the only movie I saw that had that as a feature. Yeah.
There was another feature. Go on.
Oh yeah, I can say the fun update to the zombie rules. We've the zombie rules of George Romero have been kind of solidified in pop culture with The Walking Dead and all that stuff. But zombies that you can hit them in the brain and they don't die. Indeed, you can cut them up into pieces and the pieces are still alive. Definitely, it's a fun spin. It's definitely a fun spin, along with, of course, the eating brains and being sentient. And good zombies, zombie rules.
I think that's one of the things that is cool about this movie is the fact that we grew up in an age of metatextual horror movies, especially typified by a lot of movies like Scream, where people are talking about the rules for surviving horror movies, all this kind of stuff in the 90s. But this film, I mean, in its explicit discussion of the rules of Night of the Living Dead, I remember just eating it up when I was a kid, because I had seen Night of the Living Dead and I had seen Dawn of the Dead, and I knew you were supposed to destroy the brain. And I remember when the yellow guy, watching this movie in pieces on TV, probably the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, zombies, yes. Tuning in, having no idea what I'm seeing. I remember vividly the sequence where they're holding the yellow guy, the first cadaver in the freezer. He gets out. They got to destroy the brain, and when they put the pickaxe through his brain, and he doesn't die, and they keep cutting him up. It was blowing my mind because I knew that there were rules to zombie movies, and the fact that they were talking about, well, it worked in the movie.
But you mean the movie live?
Exactly. It felt like the movie was a fun game that that as a kid we were getting to play, etc. Like it was something that we would have made or something, talk like kids who like horror movies fight a zombie, etc.
I'll just add that it was also one of the first movies that I saw as zombies that had the speaking zombies, and I'll say first isn't chronologically one of the earlier ones, but yeah, those gags of like send more paramedics, send more cops, really got a good giggle out of it.
That's another thing that I dig about the movie is, like, again, years later, there became a fad of it was over discussed after 28 Days Later of zombies being fast or slow, which this movie always had the fast zombies. It first had the first fast zombies and intelligent
like a swarm of zombies.
The scene where they interrogate the skeletal zombie, and
she gives her perspective on what it's like to be a zombie.
Exactly.
We get the first subjective zombie perspective through it. It's apparently painful to rot, and eating brains is the the only thing that makes the pain stop. It's like this is a much better perspective into the life of a zombie than we get in any of the George Romero. Well, I guess in Day of the Dead, once we get into the what's his face,
name? The one
who does the shooting, learns to shoot a gun. We're pretty humanized with the zombies. Great look into the zombie perspective.
No, it's very cool, and I don't know, just the whole the two films played really well together. You know, so you could just feel this sort of distrustful of authority. Everything's run by the Illuminati, and they're trying to brainwash us through TV with Season of the Witch. And then on the other side, the government and the military-industrial complex are poisoning us all with evil chemicals that they used during Vietnam. And if we ever find out, or we ever try and whatever their solution is going to be to wipe us off the face of the earth with nuclear weapons, only to then be poisoned further and turned into zombies. That, I don't know, that kind of and as it turns out, they were right about all that stuff, including Stonehenge and all the druidry. That's actually what happens. Right,
Oh yeah, exactly. If you see a number on a barrel, don't call it.
Yes, that's right.
Don't call it. They
don't
won't
call
help
the number
you.
on the barrel. And if you are feeling like stealing one of the large blocks from Stonehenge, don't do it.
You wouldn't believe how we got it there.
Yeah, I did like that line.
They couldn't come up with a clever idea of how they got it there, so he just said, "You wouldn't believe how we got it here."
Yeah,
it's like I wouldn't believe how you got it there. That seems like mighty difficult feat indeed.
Indeed. Yeah, no, it was a magic trick. I get it. And they had a giant stone that was glowing at the end of that movie, and that's cool. It's just like, if you have a movie with a giant glowing stone, you could do anything that aren't robots. I don't know. Just a thought. But anyway, loved Return of the Living Dead. It was cool getting to see it with a big audience because, man, a lot of fun reactions, a lot of laughter throughout, and so that was a cool experience at the Paramount. I don't know. I think that it was a really fun. That I'm thoroughly in the Hollywood in the Halloween spirit at this point after those movies. What do you think, Taylor? Have we gotten spooky?
I think we should finally go embark on a Spirit Halloween tonight.
Oh, that's right. We need to put out some pumpkins or some sort of thing.
You can actually externalize this spooky mood that we're in.
Yeah, no, 100%. So we were feeling very spooky. So perhaps now we will move on.
We can talk about the scariest movie we saw.
For Taylor, definitely the scariest movie of these four.
I know. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to mention about Horror Church before we end, which is the fact that at the end, we missed it earlier, but at the very end, Carrie ended, and they did a cool thing, which is the movie ends, and then they immediately cut the film, turned on a spotlight, and a gal completely covered in blood from head to toe just appeared in front of the screen in a spotlight, which was a great dramatic
As if
flip.
Carrie, whose hand we saw in the final shots, grabbing What's-Her-Face's arm, had emerged fully from the grave and was now walking as an undead zombie, still fresh blood, across the room.
Yeah, no, it was great. And in sort of the meta narrative of the evening, we had all attended Carrie's funeral. We had heard Carrie's eulogy. We saw the thing. They even did, I think, a little in memoriam montage for Carrie at one point. And then at the very end, Carrie was risen like some spectral figure, and she walked down the aisle of the church past everyone with the spotlight on her. It was very cool. Very fun thing. Oh, speaking of which, I think they're doing the next Horror Church is Night of the Living Dead. So there you go. So good for them.
Next weekend.
Yeah, next weekend. There you go.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, so it was a very, very cool way to see all of that. But so last week, Cliff, you were out of town on a shoot, and therefore we were unable to record a pod about the film we had seen that week, which was not a horror film, but I feel like a film that needs to be addressed. Francis Ford Coppola's long gestating Megalopolis, which has been received with mixed receptions since it came out.
Mostly confusion, I think.
A lot of confusion.
Overwhelming sense of confusion for people.
Not the level of contempt people have reserved justifiably for the sequel to Joker, but with mixed receptions. But the first person I want to turn it over to is Taylor, who really liked Megalopolis a lot.
Oh.
I want to say that we are not all of you. This is not me teeing up, me dunking on Megalopolis. I actually quite enjoyed Megalopolis myself, but I know Taylor had a different experience. I think Taylor had the experience in Megalopolis that I had in Joker 2. So you go ahead.
No, we both commiserated a lot over the past week or two about seeing two awful movies. I did not, and I can't even quite, and I've actually been ruminating on it. I can't quite put my finger on one or two aspects. I just left that movie, just so jaded.
Well, I mean, you don't have to pin it down. I don't think anyone's going to question you, like, what? You have criticism
What?
with Megalopolis? Are you crazy? Like, I think that as even someone who finds it has a lot of redeeming qualities, yes, much of the film in its performance and its execution and its things is at best odd or perhaps broken or perhaps even I wouldn't say non-functional, but just, let's say, has some serious issues in its execution. So yes, you are 100% okay, and in that, not necessarily
overall as a movie, it does not does not play well for an audience. The audience was not with it and enjoying it through the whole way. They could feel the frustration and confusion of the audience.
I will just to speak on the audience. It was the one movie I've ever seen somebody, like, literally 15 minutes in, just this couple to our left just got up and left the movie.
Yeah, series of walkouts throughout the movie. Yeah, starting with the couple. You can tell it's a walkout when both people exit at the same time.
It's not a bathroom if they are leaving.
No, I think it's one of those films that announces very early on that it's not going to feel like a normal movie in any sense, and I think and again, some of that is intentional, but a lot of it is, I think, just a result. And I think anyone who does any kind of production knows this, that the kind of production you have determines the kind of product that you have at the end of it, whatever that is. And I mean, in good ways and bad. And the extreme eccentricity of the production of this film, it was self-financed by Francis Ford Coppola. He brought in, so he's able to bring in
$120 million of his own money on this.
Wow.
To make with his own people and his own family, and bringing in big actors like Adam Driver, who are incredible, who are big stars and incredible actors, but doing just whatever he wanted with them, and not really emphasizing as a production the kinds of things that a film of that scale would normally emphasize. And so, because it's a product of an entirely different system, it has an entirely different feel from a studio-produced movie. It has an entirely different feel from a streaming film. It has an entirely different feel from anything that normally that feels like the kind of stuff that Cliff or I might encounter at some obscure festival playing weird international cinema, but that's something that was clearly so odd in how it was put together, it's never going to make the leap across the Atlantic and get a distribution deal in the United States, which ultimately was nearly the fate of Megalopolis. Like, we've seen weird, eccentric shit that's made in Italy or whatever, and it's never going to be released here, and it feels different just because it doesn't feel like an American movie. But this movie has Adam Driver in it, and this movie cost $120 million. So this movie is playing in a theater near you, and so there's a chance that regular folk are going to walk in and they're going to see it, as they did. And it definitely does not feel like a regular movie in 2024. It feels like something very different.
And that was certainly the most refreshing part about it.
Yes, sure. I agree. I say all of that to say that here's my take on Megalopolis, and I think even using Joker 2 as a productive counterexample is good, which is that for all of the myriad kind of technical, I'll say this, for all of the myriad things that are eccentric about the execution of Megalopolis, it definitely suffers from an overabundance of sincerity. That is to say, there's many meanings that, Francis Ford Coppola clearly cares a great deal about and is attempting to convey. Therefore, if you are able to parse the issues you have with it formally or with its performances, or you're able to kind of push them aside or look through them, if you're able to suspend disbelief and give yourself over to the film, it is worthwhile because there are meanings and there is a sincere emotion there that we're trying to get at. There is a sincere core, as opposed to the way in which a film like Joker 2 is non-functional, which is a utter lack of sincerity, an utter kind of condescension to the idea of a movie, and therefore when it also doesn't work formally, there's no reason to look through the bars. There's no reason to give it benefit of the doubt. There's no reason to give yourself over to it emotionally because it's telling you there's nothing there.
Yes, there's nothing there to be gained from multiple rewatches of Joker 2. There might be things to be gained from rewatches of Megalopolis. And to give it its due, the central well, no, to give it its due.
Sorry.
The central metaphor.
You want to watch it again, Taylor?
Taylor Stewart, the central metaphor of Megalopolis is a good one, and it's a popular metaphor. It's the metaphor of the United States today is like ancient Rome before Rome's fall. Rome was an empire around the Mediterranean. The United States is an empire around the world. Rome fell. The United States feels like it's about to fall. Plus, there's all sorts of internet memes of people are obsessed with Rome. How often does your boyfriend think about Rome?
Yeah. What's your Roman Empire?
We're telling you. Explained that. I didn't. You were on the internet.
It was a micro meme that became a very big meme. But it was essentially some girlfriend found out that her boyfriend did in fact think about the Roman Empire every day, and then it became a trend of like, ask your boyfriend if they think about the Roman Empire or how often they do. And then it became girls were like, well, this is my Roman Empire. I think about this every day.
So if that, by the way, it's actually that which speaks to how prescient Francis Ford Coppola was in anticipating that being in the zeitgeist. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, but absolutely, yeah. And there's some occult background to it, because like in the like current occult tradition, the idea is that the group soul of the Romans are being resurrected as the group soul, reincarnated as the group soul of America. So there's a lot of background to that goes way back. But
expand on that.
That's just I know nothing more than what I just said. I barely remember it, in fact.
No, but I do like that idea that we are essentially. We also, and I remember in conjunction with that idea is the idea that both America and Roman carry similar symbols, like the eagle and everything as their symbol and other things. Because
and so the movie Megalopolis is essentially just an arch satire of America today, American culture today, with various people representing various kind of obliquely various figures and types of personalities that are present today, but through the metaphor of the Roman Empire. What if America today was the Roman Empire? And the character that Adam Driver plays is named Caesar, and he's kind of an Elon Musk, Donald Trump amalgamation. Howard Rourke, kind of a character. Yeah. And so it's a satire of modern America as if it were Rome, and some of it works great, and a lot of it doesn't work great for various reasons. Like there's a gladiatorial arena where there's gladiators fighting, but it looks like WWE wrestlers, shit like that.
Yeah. They have long monologues where it sounds almost Shakespearean, and then there is dialogue like, you can go hang out in the club.
By the way, I thought that was great. I thought that delivery was
I know,
really
that was
good.
one of your favorite lines.
No, the club line was great. And I think it's one of those things where, like, I think the work of art itself, I suppose, is just putting on screen this conflated version of Rome and America together all as one idea, and then all of the many cool juxtapositions he can show about that, which is cool. But it also then, it's like, okay, so what do you do with that? And I think that some of the, what I dig about it is what a lot of people thought is a somewhat superfluous element of the movie, but I thought it was kind of key to deciphering the whole movie, was that Adam Driver has the ability to stop time. And again, the film, because all of the film's themes are, as you said, kind of announced in long monologues. The main chick, I don't remember what her name is, who Adam Driver marries, delivers a monologue about artists and engineers and creative types and dreamers, or people who stop time. So the film essentially tells you that the ability to stop time is Francis Ford Coppola's ability to make movies. It is what artists do. The whole film juxtaposes these kind of two Apollonian and Dionysian impulses, the Apollonian being like Dustin Hoffman at the beginning. There's only concrete, and steel. And we must do things the way they have been done. They're the studio system. They're conventional reality that is grounded in, reality and what does work or doesn't work, etc. And then Adam Driver delivers his initial monologue right about the time that couple walked out next to us, where he delivers the whole Hamlet speech and everything, but more or less talking about how there need to be dreamers and these people to reinvent and see new worlds and see the possibilities, and how that is very much tied in with divinity in a bunch of different ways in the movie. But his ability to stop time is his ability to create, Megalopolis, who cares about the actual name of whether he's come up with a substance called Megalodon or what Megalopolis is.
Megalonium or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it's fucking called.
Never explained.
Yeah,
never explained.
But that's the thing. Is like,
seen as a weird visual, morphing, floating, metallic thing.
Pure potentiality. It's pure creativity. It's like the unfettered imagination. It is that, and that's what it is. Like it need not be explained more than that. We get it. It is
kind of like
creativity.
Avatar's unobtainium.
Exactly. But So his ability to stop time is his ability to create art. And I think that one of the things that's interesting about the movie is you see the Adam Driver character Caesar lose his ability to stop time, lose that ability. He's losing his connection to the divine, his connection to his creativity. And then, and again, I've only seen the film once, in marrying, in falling in love, in ultimately, as we see in the very final shot of the film, has a baby. And then stops time. And the
baby
frame,
stops time.
And we're shot, which is, by the way, yes, that's right. And it's shot from below so that the world is the baby's world, and the baby is moving, and the baby is everything. That this act of creation, the literal creation.
God, I hope that baby knows how to restart time.
Otherwise,
just to be annoying.
He's just gonna have just one baby crawling around Megalopolis just by itself. Yeah. No, that clearly what he is trying to get at on some level, and again, I would have to watch the movie more to unpack more than this, but on some level is just this idea that creativity, the act of creation, the act of dreamers channeling some kind of divinity into the act of creation, is intimately related or akin to the very act of creation of human life itself. That is to say, even us, even, our ability, my ability, anyone's ability to be creative is intimately related to love, is intimately related to their family, is intimately related to their children, is intimately related to the contemplation of those kind of higher level abstractions, the contemplation of certain bigger ideas of being connected to something larger than yourself that accompanies falling in love and feeling something that the love is bigger than you. Mm-hmm. The feeling that the internet connection you have with your family is somehow bigger than you. Because a big part of even what the film's opaque symbolism, but I don't think it's that opaque, is you literally have what's his name from Breaking Bad? Giancarlo Esposito. Mm-hmm. You literally have his character as the father-in-law of
Gus from Breaking Bad. He's saying he's having a vision of the moon being stolen from him, by a big hand, as Adam Driver is falling in love with his daughter, which is his moon, his sort of, again, something that represents for him pure potentiality, pure creativity, pure lunar energy. So he's taking that away, and it's these men struggling over something that is innately feminine. It's basically saying that the act of creativity is something that's inaccessible to him until he falls in love with a woman, until he gets married, until he has, again, a child, and that there is something innately feminine about the act of creation, and that is single-minded as he is as a dreamer, he is beholden to that in order to feed his ability to literally stop time. And so it basically takes all these different levels of what creation is and brings them all together symbolically, which adds a really fascinating metatextual element, because you see at the same time, and this is where maybe not everyone will be on board with me, but I genuinely think that it's part of what makes it a very, very interesting piece of art, is that even the pieces of the film that don't work necessarily formally, even the parts that feel odd, even the parts that feel awkward, I think on some level are Francis Ford Coppola losing his ability to stop time, losing his ability to freeze time, create, dive to the other side of the screen, and actually Francis Ford Coppola is over 80 years old at this point, so this is likely his last or one of his last movies. Yes. So yes, and so his ability to be a film director of a big, complicated film and actually make it work definitely does require a spry mind.
Yes,
some can pull it off, some can't, and it does fade.
And keep in mind, facing this production, he knew he was going to be this age. He knew that he was losing these abilities as he's laying down the track of this megalopolis in front of him. So he's losing that ability. He kind of is contemplating losing the ability, and the loss of that ability is what directly connected in the film to the loss and then regaining, because he's a young man in the movie, of the wife. While Francis Ford Coppola loses his wife, I think after the production ended, but she clearly, was old, I guess, I don't know, but he loses his wife and is mourning his wife when he's working on this film. So again, it is an interesting film that almost works talismanically as this object that almost transcends, because if you look at it as a causal piece of art, a screenplay that was then executed by a director and then an editor to arrive at a very specific intent, is maybe not the way to watch it. In the same way that if you or I are watching a cool 1950s horror movie, we will push aside the fact that maybe in Attack of the Attack of the Crab Monsters, which is one of my favorite films, and I have a postcard for it right here, Roger Corman's movie. Yes, maybe the crabs are made out of paper mache, but it's worth it to push those things aside, to give yourself over to the movie, to believe in the movie, to put yourself in the world of the movie for the meanings and the humor and the world that's created in that movie. And I feel it's the same way with Megalopolis, where it's kind of worth doing that and giving yourself over to it just because... even as he is losing his ability to make movies, he is making a film about the struggle to realize that is ebbing from his hands and how it is intimately related to the very people he is seeing die around him, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. It's an interesting film that almost works as a magical object unto itself, like the giant piece of Stonehenge in Season of the Witch, to bring it full. That is Megalopolis.
It is a Stonehenge stone.
No, it feels like
it is one of the blue stones.
That's right, yeah. It feels like a confluence of a lot of different energies all coming together. A guy contemplating his own inability to potentially make movies or create anymore through the examination of a guy who loses his ability to stop time, and just as he is losing his wife and coming to the end of his career, he is making a film about a younger Caesar-like version of himself who finally realizes his ability to stop time is intimately related to getting married and having a baby and that feminine aspect of creation. Anyway, so it's just a cool movie overall on that level, and I don't know, it's just yeah, it's worth diving in on and kind of yeah. I mean, there's some beats that don't work, as you were just pointing out. I mean, that are hard.
Yeah, I think one of the chief. Well, I mean, there's many flaws, but I think one of the differences is very big inconsistency between the actors and whether they get the material and can deliver this abstract material. Adam Driver is great. Yes. Any moment he's on screen is great. Aubrey Plaza is very fun. She gets it. She's great whenever we see her on screen. Shia LaBeouf, even with very weird, fucked up eyebrows, is
took me a while to realize that was Shia LaBeouf. To be honest, so
is tons of fun whenever he's on screen.
Shia LaBeouf did not even realize he was in that movie. That's just how he looked. He was just on set. He was on set. He was dating Aubrey Plaza or something, and so they were just shooting him, and that is just how he behaves normally. I don't know what was it about?
But I would say the lead actress playing the daughter, who plays the daughter of Gus from Breaking Bad, but she is kind of the lead in the
Game
movie.
Game of Thrones girl.
Is she from Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's her name?
But yeah, she is. I'm sure maybe a good actress in other things, but she doesn't clearly quite get how to perform all this arch abstract stuff, and given that so much of the movie hangs on just her delivering a whole bunch of these weird lines, those things kind of don't work at scenes.
This is what I will say is that and even to kind of cut her some credit, and so to credit to some of the other actors who have awkward performances in it, is it feels like one of those movies where perhaps because the director is 80 years old and also trying to produce the movie himself, that it feels like a self-directed movie. That is to say, it's one of those movies
vis-a-vis the actors' performances.
Yes, the actors' performances. That is what I mean. Is it feels like the actors were in a position of kind of trying to figure out the material themselves, because the performances are so wildly kind of inconsistent, not just tonally, but you have someone like Adam Driver who is able to take each scene, and he has he's the star of the movie, he has the time, he has the space to do it, and as weird as some of the curveballs that are thrown at him, like delivering the Hamlet speech or the Clurb line or all of those things, he's trying to invent a character. He's trying to invent a real subtext that actually justifies this. He's trying to find some sort of core and actually pull it off. And then there are other scenes where I think actors don't have the ability to do that entirely from the ground up themselves, where there are other actors who really need a director to help bring them into alignment with those with those kind of performances. And so some scenes, when you have actors that have that kind of facility all on their own, work really, really, really well. And then there are other scenes where some people seem fucking lost and like they're in a different movie from other people. And that's, I think, unfortunately, some of those moments where that shows kind of off happens a lot in the early parts of the film. film, and I think causing some people to walk out or just think this isn't how
I
movies
think
are supposed to
there's also
feel.
an element. I'm like trying to remember parts of the plot in my head, or even what the plot was to begin with. And I think there's no action sequence. There's no audience invested betrayal. It is just kind of this story of this man who learns to love and find a person, which usually is enough. But like you were saying, like putting yourself on the other side of the screen, really investing yourself in the movie, it kind of felt, you almost, at least for me, who left the movie very angry or just very annoyed, I've almost felt jaded. It's like I gave myself to the movie, I stuck it out, and it didn't really take me anywhere.
Yeah,
or at least
no,
again, personally.
No, I understand that. I will also say it feels like a movie that is simultaneously, and this might sound like an oversimplification, but too big and too small at the same time. Because it's so big, it's perhaps was unruly for to be made, but at the same time, given that the film ostensibly features certain things like nuclear debris falling to the ground and blowing up the world, like it feels like it could have had some higher stakes scenario against which a lot of these thematic ideas, and against a lot of which these ideas that are largely just abstract monologues could, and yes, a plottier and perhaps more action-heavy version of the movie, been given some rails to sit upon, been given some purpose, and been given the opportunity to actually crystallize into dramatizations of the ideas instead of just a lot of monologues about them. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you could just have war going on at the time. That certainly would seem like an adequate satire of modern America as it was Rome. In modern America, there's wars going on all the time. And at the time that Caesar was taking over, there was, of course, a civil war going on and plenty of conquering of new territory. So that could have factored in one way or the other, It could have been an element that could have added a little bit of spice to the political proceedings.
I mean, not to, again, I'm sure this makes everything sound very gross and dumb, but by way of example, it's the kind of thing where I feel like many of the same characters, the same ideas, if there was anything in the end of the movie, like a war that's building and there's going to be a bomb that lands on the city, just anything to drive these characters together and drive them to contemplate all these ideas, like the meaning of Megalopolis and why he won't abandon it, and even if it's bombed, he's going to stay inside the city. And she's like, you can't do that because you're married now and you have a baby. I know these things sound very Independence Day, but again, it creates the nozzle through which all of these ideas that are now just monologues actually become dramatized. It creates these moments of intense choice where he has to decide, even though the bomb, little timer going off, even though the bomb is gone off or is going to drop on Megalopolis or whatever the fuck is going to happen, that he's going to stay there, and then she has to coax him out, and that his real creation is the child and not the thing, or not, and he goes back in and gets killed. It doesn't matter, but there's something, and I think that that's the kind of thing that the scale of the movie is so big and surreal, and the performances are very disparate and very large. It is very, very big, and yet the story itself is so very, very small. It's essentially, I'm a guy, the people who I guess are my political rivals, though it's kind of ambiguous as to why, but it doesn't really matter. The whys don't matter. Are the parents of the woman I'm falling in love with. I fall in love with that woman. I have a child with that woman, and eventually I make peace with her father, is sort of the whole plot of the movie. There's political stuff that's the background, but that is the plot of the movie.
If she was the daughter of Vladimir Putin, then it all could have been, or the Vladimir Putin
or whatever.
stand-in,
Exactly.
That could have been something fun.
Or exactly. Even that level of stuff. Like, she's the daughter of the enemy people, and so that creates an easy way for those people who are conservative critics of him to call him a traitor and blah, 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 blah. All sorts of fun things. But I think, that I totally can understand anyone who can't quite get through its weird eccentricity, its odd production, the weird CGI, the strange performances that don't all seem to connect into anything that feels like a movie today. And yet, there's a lot of weird movies out there that don't feel like movies today. If you go look on VOD or if you go to a film festival, but very few of them actually are coming from a place where you want to try and discern their meaning because you feel like there might actually be nuggets of gold in there. And I think this film does have nuggets of gold that I will probably continue to parse on perhaps a subsequent... Yes, exactly. Go mining for on my next thing. And it's also one of those things, and I will say this, not unlike how when I was saying Return of the Living Dead, the archness of all the performances and the costumes and everything is something that makes it feel, ironically, more timeless, because films that were, say, more tasteful tastefully in the 80s, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, feel very 80s, whereas the cartoon nature, the arch nature of all the characters in Return of the Living Dead feel kind of timeless. I think this is a film that will benefit from time in that as standards of what a contemporary film changes, just like when we watch Bucket of Blood or Attack of the Crab Monsters, people don't really give a shit as much, whether or not performances are arch or naturalistic, or whether or not the CGI looks contemporary with whether it should be where it should be in 2024. That stuff will seem not as important, and while the film will still have myriad eccentricities, I think that will persist in time and will not all be entirely mended. I think it's one of those things when people give a shit a little bit less by the fact that this looks dated or this doesn't feel like how other films feel right now, they will be able to approach it, I think, with a little bit more of an open mind into seeing what it actually is trying to say. And I think there are nougins in there to mine. So, yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Plenty of nougins.
So, but unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, for the audience, you don't have to wait and find out what those nougins are. We have consulted with the spirits ourselves, and right now, we can only speculate as to the greater meanings of Megalopolis. But earlier today, I drew a tarot card, which I am unfamiliar with. Don't show it to me yet, Taylor. Drew a tarot card asking for the deeper meanings of Megalopolis, and now we will consult the spirits. Taylor, show me the tarot card. Ha! It's the Hierophant. So the Hierophant, here you go. See the Taylor? Oh, I guess I could show it to the
camera first.
There you go.
It was upside down.
It was upside down, and I think that is meaningful.
Inverted Hierophant.
Inverted Hierophant, which honestly could not be more appropriate for the film that we were talking about, because we were just talking about how Francis Ford Coppola approached this. Why is this so weird? Because he approached it entirely outside of the traditional system of cinema, under which cinema is organized, under which cinema is created. He did it entirely outside of that system. The Hierophant represents that traditional path. He kind of represents the path of taking traditional institutions, mastering their dogmas, going through the different initiatic levels, and eventually achieving through that. But we drew it, as Taylor pointed out, inverted. So it specifically is referring to the divinity that was able to be achieved by going outside of that path, as some of us, instead of facing the traditional path of going through the studio system like many of his contemporaries, I mean, obviously he was a huge studio system guy, but like Spielberg, who continued to work and thrive within that system. Spielberg would be the Hierophant upright, upside down. That is Francis Ford Coppola. He made a film so aggressively eccentric that people are going to spend a lot of time talking about it for a very long time, because he did literally not one thing like anybody else in terms of how it was made or financed. I mean, literally, he spent $120 million of his own money from selling a vineyard to make the movie. There could be no more inverted Hierophant than that. Cliff, any other meanings that I failed to mention here?
Nothing about nailed it.
Yes, no. That's good. So really, now that we have deciphered all of the hidden meanings of Megalopolis, Cliff, it's time for us to award the Full Metal Jacked Award for the most jacked character in all four. We have 4 movies to choose from this week. 4 movies, and there's no Arnold in this movie or Jason. So I am legitimately curious. I've tried to avoid thinking about it. It's your award, but who do you think is the most jacked in all of those?
It's deceptively simple. First of all, between these 4 movies that we have, there is no real obvious choice for Full Metal Jacked. No. We don't see anyone who's really jacked with their shirt off or anything like that. Maybe had Freddy gone nude for Return of the Living Dead, he would have been jacked. He looked like he had guns.
He was a football player. Supposedly.
Or Tommy. Yeah, that never happened either.
There you go. It's true. Tommy would have been a great candidate for a jacked character, but they just cast a guy who was not particularly jacked.
But since we don't have anyone who is jacked in this movie, we have to go with the second most important thing, and with lack of jackness. The next best thing is to have a giant head.
Yes,
this goes back to my long-established theory that
Cliff has been talking about this for years.
As a person who, in working in sports media, has worked with a lot of athletes, including Olympic athletes, and seen them in person, one thing I noticed that was very a distinguishing feature of Olympic athletes, or really any athlete in any sport, whether it's gymnastics or wrestling or anything, is giant, disproportionately sized heads, especially as compared to people who are not as successful in their sport.
Yes.
It's like you have an Olympic gymnast standing next to a not Olympic gymnast. The Olympic gymnast will have a bigger head
because of all of the testosterone in the skull that's growing that skull.
Exactly.
That's
and
right.
no, for real, a larger head is a proxy for a more robust skeletal structure. And so if you see someone with a skeletally robust head, they also have skeletally robust wrists and hands and all that good stuff. And so Neanderthals, exactly. And Tom Atkins might have a higher percentage than usual of Neanderthal. Why? Because he, though lacking jackness, and we do see him with his shirt off, and he's in good shape for a man in his 50s or late 40s.
This is the lead of Halloween 3.
Of Halloween 3, yes. But he does have a enormous, in fact, his head, the head size difference
So
in
you are going with Tom
Halloween 3
Atkins
is
with
almost doesn't work for the movie, because the lead male and lead female have such a different head size. His head is literally twice the size of hers.
And that's the only thing that's different about the two of them is his head size. Otherwise, no, they're an awkward fit for a lot of reasons. But go ahead, continue.
But head size chief among them.
Good call.
But so in lieu of any genuinely jacked person for this, I will give the Full Metal Jacked award for this podcast to Tom Atkins in Halloween 3 for having the biggest head of anyone in all 4 of these movies.
Yes, good. No, that's an interesting choice.
And getting the most action out of
that's true.
too.
Big head leads to athletic achievement and action, as we have established.
Yes.
The 2 A's.
By action,
double
do we
A's.
mean fisticuffs or having sex with women?
You know what? 3 kinds.
Three
All
kinds
of those.
of action.
Both
There you
action,
He did
and
get the most action, and he was involved in the most
actually
action.
grabbed ass. I'm
He
on
had
the
mo-
train with you.
He had more sex than Trash did in the movie.
Frankly did. Trash had no sex. She proposed. She proposed sex to at least two
to
men.
at least suicide.
But oddly enough, suicide was too respectful of the dead in order to give in.
As he said, this is not a costume. This is a lifestyle.
And speaking of, we also were starved of Naked Freddy, but also starved of zombie suicide. I mean, he got eaten.
That's true.
He's
We never
such a
saw a
colorful
zombie
character. You would assume that bringing back a version of him without any without all of his chains on, zombified, would be quite cool. Though we did find out that what's his name, who played Frank. I just found this out, which is kind of funny. The reason he burns himself is that he was older and did not want to shoot in the cold rain outside during all of the rain sequences, because all the young people were apparently very wet and cold, and he was like, how about instead I just burn myself so I don't catch pneumonia and die, which is a great scene. It's awesome. And again, that's what makes those bits so good, is just and I know now we're just on Return of the Living Dead all of a sudden real quick for a second,
which is frankly the best movie out of the 4. It was the most enjoyable
of these 4. Well, I would say Carrie between Carrie and Carrie is probably the best movie, but I would say of the enjoyable movie experiences and with the audience getting really super into it this time, certainly Return of the Living Dead was the most fun.
I know that Carrie definitely, the whole horror church experience was a peak experience, but I could tell Taylor's favorite movie, because Carrie is also a very sad movie. Taylor's favorite movie was clearly Return of the Living Dead, and we had a really awesome time watching that at the Paramount too, so that was really fucking fun. But yes, I think so. We've awarded Full Metal Jacked, we've consulted with God, so at this point I think we can put a pin in the end, or a button at the end of this podcast.
As a little teaser, we may or may not be going to go see Death Becomes Her later this afternoon.
That's right.
No guarantees. We've seen 5 movies in 3 days.
Yes.
But that might be a fun future episode.
Yeah, and this would be my second podcast on Death Becomes Her, since I covered it on my previous podcast about the career of Robert Zemeckis. But I would love to talk about Death Becomes Her again, because it is a great movie, and it is part of that new music video with Sabrina Carpenter that you showed me. Did I get her name right this time?
Sabrina Carpenter,
yeah,
indeed.
I thought I'd make it up the Carpenter part because of John Carpenter, but I didn't. I got it right. They're the same.
They are the same.
I wonder if she's his daughter. She's not.
No. But, no, lots of very fun homage, and it might be fun to do a 1 by 1. But yes,
excellent.
Great movie.
For sure. Awesome. Well then, guys, I guess we can wrap it up. This has been a really good pod. These were a lot of really fun movies. This has been spooky. I guess so. For The Crowded Theater, I am Kyle.
I am Taylor.
And I am Cliff.
And we will see you at the movies.
Woo!
Once